Every few years, somewhere in Australia, a government makes cutting red tape its mission. But never have so many governments combined to take the pledge. Today, the Prime Minister, 6 premiers, 2 chief ministers and 26 business leaders set out to disentangle industry from unnecessary regulation. And a commitment emerged to work on 6 priorities. The first, to end the double handling of environmental approvals. Business seemed pretty happy with the meeting, and one of the leaders at the table was Richard Goyder, Managing Director of Wesfarmers, a company that runs everything from coals to coal mines. He joined me earlier from Canberra. Richard Goyder, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to be with you.
When Labor came to power in 2007, one of its catch cries was that it would build a seamless national economy. Is it better to do business now than it was 5 years ago?
Well, there's been some progress made on the seamless national economy, Chris, which is positive, and I've been talking to a number of our businesses in the last few weeks leading up to this forum today, which has indicated that there has been some progress made on some harmonisation of areas between states, but at the same time there's been a lot of other things go on which has increased the regulatory burden on business, and a lot of the conversation we had today was about how we can ease that burden.
So in some places things have got harder since 2007.
Yeah, well, I think in the combination between local, state and federal government and well-meaning regulation, but which doesn't have a use-by date or actually has unintended consequences, with all of that, we've ended up with a bit of a mess, I think, across a lot of areas, and it impacts businesses like ours where we're big players in the economy across a number of fronts.
You said before going into this meeting that Australia was now a costly place to do business. Where are your biggest costs?
Well, we employ a couple of 100,000 people across Australia, and we're proud of that, and we hope to employ more people. So there's a significant cost of employment, obviously. But the things that worry us now are costs of major projects, construction costs or time delays around that. Labour costs obviously is a big deal for us, and we are concerned with the proposed increase in superannuation that be offset against future wage claims, not be on top of future wage claims.
And the union movement, of course, would say that it should come from your profits. Have you worked out how much that might cost you if that was the case, a move from 9 to 12%?
Well, I think for Wesfarmers it would cost in the vicinity of $240 million, which is a significant amount of money for a group even as large as Wesfarmers is, and it would be a significant impost on our shareholders and unfair. And, you know, Chris, when my salary is reported, superannuation is included, and most people would think that their superannuation is part of what they earn. And
what will be the costs of a carbon tax of $23 a tonne to your business? You must have done these calculations.
Well, prima facie, we produce around 7 million tonnes of CO2 per annum, so that gives you about $160 million before we do anything to mitigate it, and we're doing a lot to mitigate it, particularly in coals, but in some of our other retail businesses as well. In some of the manufacturing businesses we can't do a lot, but where we can, we will. So, you know, our view on this, Chris, is the legislation has passed, the tax is coming, we need to do as much as we can to mitigate the impact.
So under this government you've seen a rise in labour costs, you're looking at a rise in superannuation costs and a carbon tax. Do you think that government understands what the combination of its decisions are?
Well, I think they do, because they certainly heard in spades on it today, and you know, I've taken the opportunity from time to time to talk to ministers as well. And, you know, I do think they understand that, and they understand that Australia needs to have policy settings in place which makes it a good place to do business. And by the way, you know, the economy here isn't all bad. Australia is a good place to do business, but we've got to make sure that the settings are appropriate into the future that allow businesses to prosper and create wealth and create jobs and pay taxes, which the governments can then work out how they distribute.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about jobs recently, and of course the government has some role to play in that. But you own coals, and a lot of your suppliers say some of the decisions that you make are costing them. You're squeezing your suppliers, and that's costing jobs in Australia.
Chris, I think one of the great ironies over the last 5 years for me, since we acquired Coles, it's not quite 5 years, is when we acquired the business in 2007, there was an inquiry led by the Rudd government then about supermarket prices, and people said prices were too high. And since then, Coles has led prices down, and we're now getting hammered for having too lower prices. And, you know, our job is to look after our customers, the millions of customers who walk into Coles' front door each week, and we do that through giving them products that they want at affordable prices. And, you know, I think that's something to be quite proud of. And if businesses haven't invested in their brand, or they haven't invested in productive capacity, and they want to blame us, then I think that's their problem, or if they've got structural issues. But, you know, I think what we're doing with Coles is a very, very good thing for the Australian economy.
But some of your suppliers, people like Heinz, Unibix, National Foods, Goodman Fielder, they are complaining about the way that you do business.
Well, you know, they haven't made any of those complaints to me, and we do significant business with those groups. And you know, since we acquired Coles, and in fact we've increased the business we do with most of our suppliers. But in business, you know, it can be tough, Chris, and there are winners and losers. And businesses that invest in new products and in more efficient ways of getting them to you will win in this world, and that's exactly what we've had to do at Coles.
Richard Goyder, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.